Hey, Mike Sano, have you seen my Clark Griswold bobblehead? I didn't touch it. Then where did it go? Oh, Iota, can you answer that and put it on the big screen?
Hey, Mike.
Oh, hey, Toby, how's it going? Did we have a crossover planned for this week? If we did, I've been a little busy. I might have forgotten.
No. See, I'm a ghost of Christmas present, and you just happen to have shown up on my list.
Wait a second, you're a Ghostbuster and a ghost? How does that even work?
No, I'm not actually a ghost. Besides, do you think Gogular pays for itself? It's a seasonal gig.
Okay, so what are you here for?
You don't seem to be entirely in the Christmas spirit. Still too busy?
I got sidetracked, and now I can't find the decorations. Say, can you get that past ghost back here? Maybe he can take me back to when I knew where they were.
Look, 'cause we're friends, I'll make this easy for you. To show the powers that be, my bosses, that you've really gotten into the Christmas spirit, despite all of the craziness, you just have to do a review based around that.
I am not doing a Christmas Carol. I refuse to do it, not even for the powers that be.
That's not what I meant. I meant a book about the lack of Christmas spirit.
That's not actually a bad idea. Any idea where I can find a book like that?
Oh yeah, it's one of the perks of the job.
Oh! Wait, John Grisham, doesn't he do legal thrillers? I swear, if someone tries to sue Santa in this...
It's a non-legal thriller. It was actually adapted into a movie. Maybe you've heard of it.
No way! That was an adaptation?
Yeah, most people don't know that.
Well, looks like I have work to do. Thanks, Toby.
Don't mention it. And Merry Christmas. Now, who's next on my list?
Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. Christmas seems to sneak up on us faster and faster every year, and sometimes the rampant commercialism can make it seem a little daunting. Don't you wish that you could just skip over Christmas? I sure do, but not because of commercialism, just because I'm swamped with work. But, as an internet reviewer, I am, of course, tasked with regaling you with some Christmas cheer or cheese. And while last week we had a really good Christmas story, this week we hit the cheese. An unofficial theme for this year's Christmas reviews that I noticed while putting this episode together is adaptation, or rather source material. Last week we looked at the source material for a beloved Yuletide classic. And this week we have the source material to a less beloved movie. If you haven't already figured it out, you might guess based on the cover. And if that hasn't tipped you off, I don't blame you. It's really not obvious unless you read the back. I think what will jog your memory will be this little gem from the trailer.
Your face. It's like it's frozen.
I got a Botox injection today.
Luther.
I think we can all agree that Christmas with the Cranks was a pretty crappy movie, even with its all-star cast, including Tim Allen, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Dan Aykroyd. But that's not always a reflection on the book, right? I mean, so many awful adaptations exist, and sometimes they're adapted from classics. Then again, Chris Columbus wrote the screenplay, and he also wrote The Goonies and Gremlins, which are good movies, so maybe it is a reflection on the book. Anyway, the book was not at all well received, partly because it was so out of John Grisham's wheelhouse to write a comedy novel as opposed to the legal thrillers that he was known for, and partly because it was mediocre. It wasn't good, it wasn't terrible, but it's unremarkable. It's miles ahead of the movie, though. The film added a lot of the cheesier elements, like the Botox scene, which is not present in the source material, or Luther's feud with his neighbor's cat. Everything added was goofy slapstick that doesn't add to the overall narrative. The book tries to tell a concise story about two parents who try to escape Christmas because their only child will not be present that year, and everything managing to backfire. Let's not waste any more time and get into skipping Christmas. The book, not actually skipping Christmas. Yeah, you probably got that. Anyway, roll theme song. The cover is, it's mostly red with a really tiny picture of Hemlock Street with all their Christmas decorations and frosties, except for one house, which is entirely dark. And that's it. It's so bland. I mean, I guess it's better than just the title, but even with that tiny picture, there's nothing going on. I mean, for all we know, this could be the story of when the Crank circuit breaker blew out on Christmas. I don't know, maybe it's because I usually veer to action-packed stuff, but this isn't very impressive. Even a book with a similarly designed cover looks better than this. Whatever, let's get to the story itself. The story opens up with Luther and Nora Crank dropping their daughter Blair off at the airport so that she can join the Peace Corps in Peru. They're sad and discuss with each other how Christmas won't be the same without Blair. That night, Luther can't sleep, and so he starts calculating how much money they spend every Christmas, and it comes to a grand total of $6,100. He then gets the idea to go to a travel agency in the same building as his office, where he works as a tax accountant. He gets some information and discovers that if they skip Christmas and go on a cruise that leaves on Christmas Day, they'll save almost $3,000. He goes home to inform Nora about his plan, and she's not completely sold on it. But considering that they won't have their daughter during Christmas for the first time, she's willing to try it, as long as they still make their charitable donations. Luther's stipulations are a total boycott of Christmas, no parties, cards, gifts, and no decorations. While this seems fair, their friends and neighbors have different feelings. First off, when Nora doesn't have Christmas cards made or invitations to their yearly Christmas Eve party made, the owner of the card shop, Aubie, gets concerned and calls Nora when she's out with her friends for lunch. And they overhear the Christmas boycott plans, and while one of her friends understands and wishes that she could do it, her other friend is scandalized since skipping Christmas is unheard of. Then, when the Boy Scouts go door-to-door selling trees, Luther refuses to buy one, and severely offends them. But it's not like the movie where he just says they're not buying a tree. Too bad, so sad. He offers to give them money in the summer for a camping trip. It's not like he's being a complete and total asshole about it, he just doesn't want to buy a tree. Of course, that act gets their plans made clear to their neighbors, including the de facto leader of the neighborhood, Vic Frohmeyer. Luther writes letters to his office colleagues explaining how he won't participate in any Christmas festivities, and while some of them call him Scrooge for it, a few of his colleagues approve of his actions. Vic Frohmeyer, after hearing about the boycott, decides to pull out Frosty. See, Hemlock Street, where the Cranks live, always puts up a Frosty display on every roof of the block, and Frohmeyer has this year's date pushed up because of the Cranks, as a way to goad them into doing Christmas. Luther downright refuses to do it, but when he's at work, Vic and a few other neighbors visit the house to ask Nora to bring Frosty outside so they can put it up for her, and Nora hides hides as if they're going to kill her if Frosty isn't put up. Luther returns home, counting on Walt Scheel, his rival in the neighborhood, to alleviate the lack of Frosties, as his wife Bev has cancer and so they'd be justified in not decorating for the holidays. But since Walt always has to one-up Luther, he ends up getting Frosty onto the roof, with the help of Frohmeyer. They get a letter from Blair, which makes them feel better about skipping Christmas, since she talks about how humbling Peru is, and Luther convinces Nora to go to a tanning salon before they leave, so they look the part on the cruise. Then Luther offends the Police Benevolence Association by not wanting to buy a calendar that year, and like with the Boy Scouts, he does offer them money for later in the year, but they aren't interested. Hey, Mike Sano, have you seen my hat anywhere? I may have used it to bring a talking snowman to life. Oh. Okay, then. Wait, what? And we're back. You've killed Frosty! Mike Sano, we've been over this. Snowmen aren't people. If that wasn't enough, a group of carolers show up, and Walt Scheel sends them on the trail of the Cranks to serenade them into the night with Christmas carols. The firemen come by selling fruitcakes, but Luther refuses, and so he's managed to piss off the two major civil service sectors that would be most important in a crisis. Better hope he isn't seriously injured or does something that would put a cop on his trail, 'cause he'd be in trouble. Luther gets Nora a bikini to tan in, and she wears it under her clothes, but naturally, while wearing it and feeling exposed, she runs into their pastor, who insists on a conversation about their skipping Christmas. This leads to the newspaper running a story about the Cranks, which rips them apart for their Christmas boycott. Oh, I see. There isn't actually a war on Christmas, it's just one family, and everyone is taking it way out of proportion. After burning all those bridges and enduring the sneers, Christmas Eve finally arrives. They just have to last one more day, and then they get to have the cruise, and everyone will forget about the skipping Christmas debacle. But we all know it's not going to be quite that easy. In the morning, they get a call from Blair, who tells them that she's coming home for Christmas after all with her Peruvian fiancé, who's never experienced Christmas before. Nora decides that she's done with Luther's antics and decides that they're doing Christmas, party and all, even if they only have a day to prepare. She sends Luther out to get a tree, but naturally there aren't any trees left. They attempt to invite their close friends to their party, but most of them are busy. When Luther can't find a tree, he borrows one from their neighbors, the Trogdons, who go away to a cabin on Christmas Eve and so don't actually need their tree. He gets Frohmeyer's son Spike to help him move it, but Walt Scheel sees him and assumes that he's stealing it a la the Grinch and calls the cops on him, and naturally it's the two cops who he refused to buy calendars from. Vic Frohmeyer sees the commotion and corroborates Luther's story. They might have their differences, but he knows Luther's not a criminal. Spike helps him set up the tree, and then Nora forces Luther to put up Frosty. In his attempt, he loses his balance on the icy roof and falls off, with Frosty landing on the ground and shattering, and Luther ending up hanging from the roof upside down by a wire. An ambulance is called, causing the two fruitcake-selling firemen to show up, and Nora gets home and tells Frohmeyer that Blair is coming home, and they're scrambling to get Christmas back on track. Frohmeyer doesn't hesitate. For all the issues they've had over the last few weeks, all the neighbors knew Blair since she was a baby and watched her grow up, so if they're doing Christmas, they're doing it for Blair, and all of Hemlock Street bands together to give Blair and her fiancé the best Christmas ever. Frohmeyer gets the cops to give Blair and her fiancé a police escort to Hemlock while they all prepare, and they throw a party with everyone on the block there, save for the Trogdons, who are on vacation, and the Scheels. Luther goes over to Walt and offers them the cruise, since they won't need it with Blair being home, and since Walt and Bev, who if you forgot has cancer, deserve it more. And Luther returns to his party, musing that skipping Christmas was a silly idea as the novel ends. And that was Skipping Christmas. Was it good? Not really. I mean, the story is solid and it makes sense. I just hate everyone in the book. I mean, everyone aside from Luther, Nora, Blair, and her Peruvian fiancé are complete assholes. I mean, they get so offended about them skipping Christmas. I swear, if the Starbucks near Hemlock changed their cups to reflect Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, they'd boycott. God damn it. Admittedly, they aren't complete jerks, since they're more offended since they know that the Cranks usually celebrate Christmas, and are nice to the various other non-Christmas celebrating cultures. But still, these people are their friends, or maybe they're not, and they're just using this as an excuse to be mean to them and have it be socially acceptable. But isn't Christmas supposed to be about love and compassion? Even Luther's a bit of an asshole. The only person I really felt bad for was Nora, since she was dragged into the mess and goaded by everyone. And the book itself is just mediocre. It's a comedy novel, but a lot of it just isn't funny. I mean, even a lot of stuff that would be funny comes across as mean-spirited. Like how everyone gathers around and laughs at Luther after he falls off the roof, but he's seeing his life flash before his eyes. It's funny, yes, but also a little scary and callous for them to laugh. The ending wasn't bad, since I do feel like Walt, despite being a jackass, does deserve to have a nice vacation with his wife, since she might not make it to the next Christmas. Overall, it's, like I said, a mediocre story, and while I haven't read his legal thrillers, I can only assume that John Grisham is a lot better at writing those than he is at writing so-called comedy. If you like the movie, then you'd probably like the book a whole lot more. And if you didn't, maybe give this one a pass, but it's definitely not the worst Christmas book out there. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time.
Surprise, motherfucker!